He might actually.
Is he a lab kitty?
Mm-hmm.
I went and talked to him and he was very friendly.
All right.
Oh,
Hello, we are live. So, thank you so much for coming out tonight. It is really a pleasure to be hosting again my dear friend Lori Rader-Day. It is with your support that Left Bank Books is able to do the 100, 200 plus events that we do per year. I want to thank our virtual audience for attending tonight. You can order a copy of Lori's brand new book online at left-bank.com. We will be getting a ton of books signed at the end of the evening that you can order and have sent anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world even. A couple of upcoming author events. You will be back here in St. Louis in about a month.
Yep.
We do have several YA events and some really fantastic events that have not yet been announced. So if you are a music fan, there might be an event coming up that is going to probably sell out very quickly. But I'm really excited about our event series, and I'm especially excited about tonight's event. I want to say a little bit about the book for those of you who have not read it yet. Ann Cleeves says, I was up until 4 a.m. finishing The Death of Us. It's bloody brilliant. So sharp and tight and clear, I'm proud to have my name attached to it. I don't think I was up until 4 a.m. finishing it. I think it was only 2:30 a.m.
Okay.
So, yeah, Anne wins yet again. Mary Kubika, who we have hosted before and is lovely, says Lori Rader-Day hits it out of the park with The Death of Us, which has everything I love in a suspense thriller. Unreliable characters, family secrets, and plenty of unexpected twists and turns. Atmospheric and unputdownable. This should be on everyone's to-read list. And because I am terrible about making certain that we talk about the plot of the book,
Yeah.
I do want to do this officially.
Please.
From the award-winning author of Death at Greenway and The Lucky One comes a chilling suspense novel in which the discovery of a submerged car in a murky pond reveals betrayals and family secrets that will tear a small town apart. How do you pronounce Liss's last name?
Kehoe.
Kehoe. Okay, great. One rainy night 15 years ago, a knock at the door changed Liss Kehoe's life forever. On that night, Ashley Hay stood on Liss's front porch and handed over her brand new baby Callan. She was never seen or heard from again. Since then, Liss has raised Callan as her own and loves him as fiercely as any mother would. But in the back of her mind, she's always wondered whether Ashley is still out there somewhere and feared what might happen if she comes back. When Ashley does reappear, it's not in the way Liss expected. After all these years, Ashley's car has been found in the quarry pond on Kehoe property. But the discovery of the car dredges up more questions and answers. What really happened on the night of Ashley's disappearance? Was it a tragic accident or something far more sinister? Someone in town knows the truth, and they'll go to great lengths to keep it quiet. As tensions rise in the small community, Liss must fight to protect her family and keep her own secrets hidden, or risk losing everything she learns. Also, everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah. About tonight's author, Lori Rader-Day is the Edgar Award-nominated and Anthony, Agatha, and Mary Higgins Clark Award-winning author of Death at Greenway, The Lucky One, Under a Dark Sky, The Day I Died, Little Pretty Things, and The Black Hour. She lives in Chicago, where she is co-chair of the Mystery Readers Conference, Midwest Mystery Conference, and teaches creative writing at Northwestern University. She served as the national president of Sisters in Crime in 2020. Without further ado, would you please help me in welcoming my friend, Lori Rader-Day. Thank you. I think I'm, other than this first one, we've all read all of Lori's books, right? Okay, great. I'm glad that everyone is either very able to lie or
Super fans, all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, you're in a room of super fans.
I am.
Yeah.
Not always that way, is it?
And for those of you watching online, I have read all of Lori's books. I can, without a doubt, say I this is my favorite one.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Like, I loved it so much. And, like, I mean, I thought that The Day I Died or Luckiest Girl Alive.
Nope,
like-
that's not mine.
Nope, that's not yours.
That's not me.
That's Mary Kubica.
No,
Nope.
nope,
Nope.
that's somebody else entirely. Jessica
Knoll.
Yeah, Jessica
Yeah.
Knoll.
Good movie.
Okay.
Here.
Didn't write that either.
It would help if I referred back to, yes, Little Pretty Things.
Little Pretty Things,
There
yeah.
we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, every time I read one of your books, like I just am so impressed. And I want to say that for the record, for the internet,
For the record,
this book was brilliant.
thank you.
Yeah.
You didn't, I mean, if you didn't believe Ann Cleeves' text at 4 a.m., it was a text. It wasn't a blurb. It was actually like a text that she sent me. And I was like, oh, I'm going to screenshot that. And I asked her before I sent it to Harvard, because I'm like, you know what happens, right? If you send a quote about your book to your editor, it's suddenly like splashed somewhere. So I made sure to ask her first. But it's just a text that she sent me after she read it.
Wow.
Or WhatsApp, whatever. you know.
She's in the UK,
Yeah, she lives
so
in
it was like 8 p.m. for you.
I think I woke up to it when
Oh,
I got it. Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Well, thank you very much. That's a big deal. I mean, because you've been a champion of all my books. That is worth saying for the record as well. That so my first event for the Black Hour was here, and I think I came here because I knew 3 people in St. Louis. Maybe they're here. And total. And but you have made me sort of like a hometown author here, which I think is amazing. So thank you for the support.
It's a privilege to sell your books.
Oh, thank you.
So let's start out. I'll take a couple of questions that I wrote, and a
Mhm.
couple of questions that you provided. So this book, what is the beginning? Like, what inspired you to write this book? And like, it is a drastic difference from your last book, but it is not from your previous books.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what direction led you back into the contemporary mystery fold.
Well, I mean, coming back into contemporary was an easy decision because the historical, as much as I loved that story and wanted it to exist, Death at Greenway was a really tough project for me. I am not a person who enjoys research or wants to do months and months of it before I start writing. I am not a let's get ready to do things kind of person. I like to just sort of jump in. And so it was a pretty easy decision. What am I going to write next? I don't know, but it's going to be contemporary because with historical, you have to research like everything. Everything, every third word. Did they say this in 1941? Did they use this phrase? Did they use this phrase in England? In the country? It was just on and on and on. All the research I had to do to get that story finished. And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, I mean, the top thing on the list was it has to be something I could do without doing a year's worth of research. First, I can just do my usual, find a couple of points on the map and start writing. So that was the major decision. I did do a little bit of research, we can talk about later, but mostly it was I wanted to feel like I could write a couple paragraphs without having to think, is this word in play at all? That sort of thing. The story itself is, I got the idea for the Death of Us when I took a trip to Minneapolis. Now, this is after the pandemic lockdown. I don't remember exactly when it was without looking at my calendar, but I was vaccinated before I did anything. So somewhere in that timeline, I went to Minneapolis and I was flying back and I looked out the window, we're high above the US and it must not have been very cloudy because I could look down, I could see the ground and I could see a little tiny quarry way down below, and it had water in it, so I could tell what it was. And I thought, as I do, as maybe all mystery writers do, there are a lot of dead bodies in water like that. So that's kind of where the story first unfolded, and I got my phone out, which I don't write on my phone. I'm not whatever Gen Z. I'm not that person. But I got out and I started typing up some ideas. The other thing that I had going on in my mind was, I'm gonna have to look this up because I'm talking about this this story and I can't remember the details of it. But I think there was a story around that time about a car being found, a submerged car being found, which proved that a woman who had been missing for years and years had just an accident, that she had just somehow slid off the road into this body of water, and they, many years later are finding her and understanding that just a terrible accident has happened. Except that the man she was either married to or dating had been in prison all these years for her disappearance. And so I remember reading that story and just being horrified, of course, that he was wrongfully convicted of this crime that was not even a crime, it was just an accident. But they didn't. But no one knew that. So the thing that interested me was that narrative that it's always the husband. My husband's here. Sorry. It's always the husband. It's always the boyfriend. That narrative. I mean, I'm sorry, guys, but it's like 98% true, unfortunately, but it's not always true. And so the narrative kind of leaping forward without having any truth as its basis was really interesting to me. So that's the crux of the death of us. A submerged car is found, but there's this narrative that's been going on the whole time. The woman in the car has been missing for 15 years. That the guy she was seeing was somehow culpable, and he was killed not long after her disappearance. And the town sort of has written that off as sort of a, well, at least he got what was coming to him, sort of thing. So the narrative has gone ahead and decided that, well, that's all taken care of then. But then when the car is found, we have a lot more questions to answer.
So, my next question wasn't going to be this, but how boring would the mystery genre be if it just followed real life? Like, if it was like you said, like a large percentage of crime is committed by who you would immediately suspect.
Well, I mean, most crime is committed by people who are not great at getting away with crime.
Correct.
Right? Most crimes are immediately, I mean, not most. There are obviously many unsolved crimes out there, many unsolved murders. So not to make light of that, but most crime is committed by people who are not super villains, right? They took a chance, or they did something stupid, or they made a mistake, or they made they caused an accident. But they leave a lot of proof behind. I think most people are not super villains. They don't know how to get away with things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very boring.
They don't need a ton of mysteries to know how to get rid of the body.
Well, they don't hang out with mystery writers.
Correct.
Yeah.
I have asked you before, like, how would you get rid of a body? I don't believe your answer was by dumping it into a quarry.
No,
So,
it's a good one though.
yeah, it lasted for 15 years. So, now to my next question. I'm thankful that you did in your acknowledgments, which I love reading the acknowledgments.
Such a nerd.
You thanked an expert on quarries.
Mm-hmm.
I have this I think I have one example of a quarry in my head, and I want to know the way that it lays out to have the car discovered. So it's not a spoiler, but the very beginning of the book, an accident happens. So the only quarry that I have in my head is very steep sides, and it's deep. So how is the car, what happens to make the car discovered?
So there's a mound of leftover. This is not a quarry that is it's not active, it's inactive, right? So what happens is vegetation grows up around it. The land or the material has been shoved up in various places. It starts to grow vegetation and become part of the landscape. And it's in some ways these quarries can be there and be secret. People can kind of forget that they're there. So I imagined that there was that they sort of like taken a chunk out of this hill, and the house that the in-laws live in is up the hill, and anyway, the accident occurs, and the boys that are in the accident, one of them is Lissette's son, has a different angle maybe than what the average viewer of the landscape is going to be looking at. He climbs up to this spot where he's not supposed to be. This is the issue with his mom at the very beginning. He's not supposed to be playing around a quarry. These quarries are dangerous, right? You dive in and you hit a hidden shelf of rock left behind. So he's just looking at it from a different angle than anyone has.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to think of what was the card.
It's sometimes best not to ask too many questions like that.
Oh, no.
Just go with it.
Oh, I completely. But I was like, what is a quarry? Like what is this?
Well, it's different than what is on the cover of the book. I can tell you that.
Yeah, like I wasn't certain. Like, is it a quarry? Is it just like a country farm that like no one gets
It's like
close
an
to?
old farm that had limestone under it and has been like chiseled out. So
Okay.
there's a cavity, and then the water is not. It's just like naturally occurring water in the land. We have water in the ground, and so for quarries they pump out the water continuously. But then once it's inactive, they're not pumping the water out, so the water starts to fill in, and you can get rather large lakes, or if you do if there's like a reservoir or a dam or something, you can actually get a very vast lake. This is more of a small
Okay.
lake.
I wanted to.
That's not what I talked to the geologist about.
Oh, really?
I talked to the geologist about things like, well, the water. How does the water? Where does the water come from? What does it look like? Would it have life to it, like fish and things like that? And no.
Really?
Well, not at first, because you'd have to introduce.
Oh, yeah.
The water has to seep in over time, and then this is how high it would be. You could never go over the top of it because it's groundwater, that kind of thing. And then what happens to dead bodies, say, when they spend time in quarry water? That's the kind of thing I talked to this very nice geologist from the Indiana survey about. It was maybe the best day of his job. I don't know. I think maybe it was one of the best days he's ever had.
Are there more organisms to help with the?
It depends on, things can be introduced into, nature will introduce nature back into the water over time. So it's more like I needed to know, okay, the water is going to be coming from below. It's not going to be like a regular lake where you walk up to the shore. It has to be, there'd be a shelf, and then it would fill up so far, and then maybe there are shelves underneath the limestone. I also talked to another expert, a forensics expert, about what happens to bodies in water over time, and other aspects of the story that maybe, I think they talk about that all the time, so it probably wasn't the best day of their job, but
Yeah. Very important.
Research, that was my research in this book. Talking to people about creepy subjects.
The sense of place in this book is super strong, and I love the town. I love the community, all the characters that you create surrounding, even down to Dottie, is it the bar owner? What was her name?
I don't know.
Here's
the thing. I wrote the book,
I know.
like a year ago.
This is
I'm
not
already
a
writing a
quiz.
next book. Her name is not Dottie, but I can't think of what it is.
Yeah, I loved her.
I liked her too.
She was
I
so
love it when you have a secondary character that you're like, oh, this person sort of just ran away with that scene, because the way I write is I don't know where I'm going. Sometimes I just I'm exploring and I'm learning things as I go, and so sometimes things surprise you. Characters will surprise you. There are 3 points of view in this story. I don't know if that's something you're going to ask about, but I have 2 third-person points of view and then 1 first-person point of view, and that I didn't plan that. That was just something that developed over time. But And then one of those points of view was a character that I did not see coming at all, Mercer, who is a town sheriff, a town marshal, and he starts telling part of the story. And I wasn't sure where he came from or what he was doing there, but he ended up doing, not half the book, but quite a bit of the book.
That's a shocking revelation.
Is it?
Because I would not have suspected that at all.
And then the third voice was, I needed that voice because I suddenly realized a lot of what this story is about is something that happened 15 years ago, and I don't have any way to unveil that. This is all like writer math, like trying to figure out how do you reveal information. I've got two people who are walking around alive and active, but they don't know. They don't know what happened necessarily 15 years ago. So how do I unveil that information? So
no, I definitely would have thought it was Keith as the like I need this other character.
Mhm.
Like I would have thought you had those two.
had it all worked out,
Well, yeah.
wrote it out like an outline, and then just wrote it word by word. No.
Yeah.
No.
I know.
That's not how this quarry is built. No. Natural.
Outside of the quarry from the airplane, is there a town or something that inspired the town itself?
In the story, the town is probably more not based on what I saw out the window, but on the town I'm from, which I won't name. But I write about that town all the time. I was just there on Tuesday, and I was doing a launch event there, and like, why do you people still buy and read these books? I keep writing about a place just like this, and people just like you, except terrible things are happening. And they don't care. They like it. Nobody else is writing about them, so they're into it. But I'm from a very small town. The house that my stepmom still lives in is 4 miles from the nearest town, and that town is 382 people. Or at least it was when before my sister and I moved away. So maybe it's 380 now. I don't know. And my parents were from there. My grandparents were from there. So it's one of these places where you sort of grow up knowing almost everybody, or at least you know who they are, or you know people in common. Maybe you don't know everybody, but you know the people at school. Well, their parents were friends with your parents, and then their grandparents were friends. They just all know each other. I can still go back to my hometown and say that I'm Pete Rader's granddaughter, and everyone will be like, "Oh," it's just this is how it is. I mean, everybody has some connection. If it's not familial, then they went to school together, or they were in Cub Scouts together, or they were in 4-H. 4-H is really, really big where I'm from. I was in 4-H. They competed against each other in 4-H, that kind of thing, and it's just it's very different from, say, Chicago, where I live next door to these people that I don't know. I hardly ever see them. I don't have the first clue what their lives are like. You have to actually talk to them and make a point. Until we got a dog, my husband and I never talked to anybody in our neighborhood. But then we got a dog, and then we kept meeting all the dog people. So now we know all the dog people. We don't know the dog people. We know their dogs. And then they're the dog's mom or the dog's dad, right? But so it's sort of borrowed from my hometown more than anything I saw out the window. It's very so the quarry in the story is not near the town. It's sort of outside the town, which tracks because you wouldn't build that many buildings near a quarry. But there's an old farmhouse that was there first, right? And then they dug the quarry out. So that's the landscape we're dealing with.
It's a very dangerous place.
Yeah.
Like my whole thought was, how has only one person died?
Right? Keep looking. Maybe you'll find some other cars.
Yeah, they really should have.
They should. And actually, so one of the other things that was going on in the news while I was writing this story was there are a couple of volunteer groups that have made it a mission to try to locate missing people through diving for submerged vehicles. Because often people will go missing between one point and the other, and there's a body of water between there. And so their loved ones can't prove it. They don't know. They can't find their loved ones, but they have a pretty good sense of or their loved one's car was, or they were last seen maybe on a bridge, or that sort of thing. But it's a big deal. It's a big, arduous deal to drag a car out of water. So there's a couple of different groups that have made it their mission to try to find some of these. So they'll use sonar to locate something car-shaped under the water, dive down for it, throw a magnet onto the metal of the car or truck or whatever, and then a line from the magnet so they can keep finding it, and then they'll send down divers to see if there are remains. And if there are remains, then the police want to know.
Oh, wow.
So then the tow truck comes and they try to lift it as delicately as they can so that they can get the remains and the evidence, such as it is, and get these bones in the ground with their family.
How did you find out about that?
Oh, I find out all kinds of things. Come on. Like, you hear a story like that, little antenna goes right up. There's a couple of, I listened to a couple of true crime podcasts, and there was one episode. I was already writing the book, but there was an episode about one of the groups that I thought, well, that's interesting. I should share that about, but I'm not writing about those volunteers. I was more interested in the regular people who are, dealing with the aftermath. It's always the case. I'm always more interested in the aftermath than the criminal.
Yeah. So getting back to the place, because it kind of had this idea of like a town that was based on, did that help, or was that a difficulty that you had to change things for like getting through town and like the high school being across town and the map in your head? Did you have to like completely throw things around to like be like, no, it's not that place. It's not this place in my head.
I don't even say that anymore. It basically is that place. I mean, it's not. I mean, this story in particular is not really about my hometown, but it's about a place where everybody kind of knows everybody else's business, and everybody already has the end of this. They've already figured out what this story is. They already know, right? They know generations of that family, and they're like, oh, they've always been in trouble. Yeah, that guy's no Kitty. Sorry, the store kitty just walked in. They already know the story. That's the thing that the town is doing. That I was really interested in, because I've seen it. I've seen that sort of thing happen in the town where I'm from, and I think that's how small towns generally operate. They think they know the story, and so they just they've already written it off. They don't need to hear it, But if there's going to be a trial, we'll be waiting to see what happens.
I think I've told you this before, but my hometown is very close to several pretty nationally known unsolved murders. The Skidmore, Missouri is where Harry McLean wrote his book in broad daylight about the town bully who was shot by
somebody.
No one knows how many people.
Everybody knows.
Yeah, everyone knows. But there's like a couple of other, small towns, perfect for creepy unsolved stories.
Well, I had an interesting
Hopefully
conversation with my agent not that long ago about basically my origin as a mystery writer. Like, where did it come from? And if you've read The Lucky One, which you had, there's an essay at the end where I talk about, there was a girl who went missing from my neighborhood when I was 8. She was 12. We knew each other. I had at least one conversation with her. Her house was down the street from mine. But it turns out there were terrible things happening in her house, which we all know now was a stepfather problem. But she went missing, and then her sister was found murdered. It was my family was involved because my grandpa was like one of the first ones on the scene. I don't know why. He was not a cop. He was a mechanic for farmers. I think the farmers who discovered the body called him and was like, "Get down here. There's something happening." So he did. So it's just like part of the family lore that this had happened. So that's probably my origin story. But then the girl went missing from the next town I lived in, and she's never been found. And I think these things happen everywhere. Obviously, there's a lot of crime in big cities, probably way more outsized than but it feels very huge in a small town because you kind of know everybody, and when these things happen, they happen to everybody. everybody feels like, oh, if I could just find that little girl, if I could just, find the girl who went missing from my neighborhood, just find her bones and get her buried with her sister. Like, you just feel like, oh, I'm so close to the story. I wish I could do something about it.
I guess I haven't really, I didn't think about, I've lived in St. Louis for 20 years, and there are a lot of unsolved murders in St. Louis, but it's small town communities really do invest and like really try to figure out, because they are so
They feel
tight-knit.
responsible for,
Yeah.
or not responsible, but, like a responsibility for the solution. How can we fix this? In a way, I lived in Chicago for over 20 years now, and I don't feel connected to that the way that I did when I did. And I didn't even live in the town, you know what I mean? Like, I lived outside of the town, but it happened to all of us.
Yeah.
So that's why small town crime stories are fascinating, I think.
And really very popular right now for fiction novels. Like you have Laura McHugh.
Of course, Laura McHugh.
S.A. Cosby.
Yep. What else you got? Lou Burney's new book.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
I would say small town, or mid-sized town, maybe.
I think of other names.
Jess Lowry does Minnesota Proud.
Ooh.
Yeah. There's a lot of us.
Yeah.
We do like the Midwestern dark stories.
You know that Laura has a new book coming out.
I do know that Laura McHugh has a new book. She might be watching, so.
I hope she is. Yeah, I just got a early copy that I'm super excited about.
I will
Not-
mug you for
not a
that.
physical
I will
one.
mug. Okay.
It's digital, but
All right.
I
I'll allow it.
it's on my phone, so I'll just screenshot every page.
I got the hookup. I'll get it figured out.
I want to talk, since we were talking about local author, or our favorite friend authors. Outside of Lou, like who else are you really excited that has a book coming out?
Oh, this is like a
year?
pop quiz. Well, I'm always excited. I'm always excited about Jess Lowry's new book is The Taken One. It's coming out. Actually, I think it might already be out. I'm doing an event with her next week, so that's why I'm thinking it's coming out next week. But let's see. I'm always excited by books by Laura McHugh, Julia Dahl, Amy Gentry, Susie Calkins. Susie Calkins, get to writing your next book, please. Shannon Baker, Erica, Ruth Neubauer. Yeah.
Actually, no. I was gonna do Lou.
Adding to my mental list.
Okay.
It's the perfect time of year to read a mystery.
I think
Well,
all time of year
time.
is a good
Yes.
time to read mysteries. Yeah.
I do already have my Christmas mystery picked out. I can't remember it isn't out yet. It comes out in a couple weeks, I think. But it is. It's by Lisa Unger? I think Lisa Unger has
Is it
a
Christmas
Yes.
Oh.
It is. It's a murder mystery set on Christmas Eve or something like that.
Okay.
It's a little slim little thing, and I was like, "Yep, this is."
Save that.
I just immediately put it in my
Put a
bag.
big bow on it. Oh, hello.
Orleans is gonna have some
Arlene's
cookies.
gonna have a cookie.
Yeah. We can't have cupcakes around him because he eats everything.
Well, it's all wrapped, so that's
Yeah.
fine. Good thing. Good thing, Arlene's. What else you got?
Let's go back. Actually, what time is it? I lost track of time. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I've read all of your books, and I'm wondering if you have any Easter eggs outside of your like general character, because I feel like that is like I think I could identify your books if they didn't have your name on the cover.
Okay.
I'm
I like that.
like I would if it was like an ABC type situation, like here are 3 books, which one is Lori's?
Okay.
I think I could do it.
Out of 3, you could do it.
I think I could do it. I could probably do it at like
What about 6?
I think I could.
Yeah, I think you could.
Yeah. That would be a pop quiz that I would love to do.
Okay.
Do you feel like you have any Easter eggs that run through that I may not have picked up on?
That is a really interesting. I don't know if I have what I would call Easter eggs. My friend Jim Ziskin does this. He puts there's a dog. I think it's a pug. There's a pug that's in every single one of his books. I haven't read his new one yet, but I bet there's a pug named Leon, I believe, is in every single book. I don't think I have anything quite like that, but I do think I have. I think I have themes. These are fun. It's the best event I've ever done. I have themes. A friend of mine the other day was asking like, "Oh, so do you write? Do you have themes that you always return to?" So glad I brought those. This is the best day of my life.
It's mine.
The cat just stole that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, if someone could get a picture of that cat with that, please, that would be amazing. Orleans, don't make yourself sick, honey.
No.
And I was like, of course, all my books have, women trying to figure out decisions of their lives and worried that they're not choosing the right one. Like, no big, of course. So I have that kind of thing where you'll see the same things thematically. But I'm hoping that I haven't accidentally caused any Easter eggs. You know what I mean? So at one point I think I'd given my new book, and I don't remember which one it was, maybe the lucky one, to, can you go make sure he doesn't choke on that? Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to hear him like, I'm like, oh God, I'm going to kill the cat. I gave it to my agent, and she's like, I thought you said you weren't going to have any hotels or hospitals in your books anymore. And I was like, look, hotels and hospitals are where shit happens, right? Like, people are not themselves. They're out of their comfort zones. Terrible things are happening to them. They're also like these places where they're like, I'm not in my usual spot. So you can sort of, it's sort of a safe place in some ways, away from like, the place where you live, or maybe you don't know where you live, and where you work, where maybe you're having trouble. So it's just like a little bit of a timeout, basically, for a character, although not completely safe. But I was like, shut up, Sharon. I need those hospitals and hotels. And I'm like, yeah, I won't do it next. No, wait. I'd already started writing the next book. I'm like, never mind, scratch that. There's already a hospital. There's already a hotel. I mean, the Death at Greenway had a nurse in it. Of course, there's going to be. Yeah. Of course, there's going to be a hospital. And I'm like, there's a hotel.
There's a hospital in this one.
Of course, there is.
Not a hotel, though.
There's not a hotel. Finally.
Yeah.
Finally, I got outside of that Venn diagram. But I don't have I wouldn't say I have like a secret passcode or anything. I don't really do that.
Yeah.
I do sometimes use names, though. I will use names of people as characters. For instance, there was a character in one of my books named Shane Mullen, which I believe you're very happy about.
Yeah.
Deputy, which is why I still call him Deputy. And sometimes we'll auction off a name for charity. And so I did a couple of those, and I had to get them all into the lucky one because I knew Death at Greenway was coming up, and I can't just get some random name and then shove it into a historical novel. So I have to protect that one a little bit. But then I started auctioning them off again, and so I had a couple for this book. So there are a couple of names like that where I have like a person that I know or other people in the mystery community will recognize as another writer or a reader. There's a name in this one. Vera Chan is a woman who, at some cost to herself, got a character named after her.
You did her dirty.
And I do not like shove these names into secondary. If I think it fits, I'll put it them into like a really juicy character and give them something to do.
Mhm.
And I don't ask them like, do you want to be do you want to be, and they're like, they don't get a say. They don't get to choose if they're, dead or a killer or a hero. They just get to be, because the name matters a lot. So, and I don't think I can't feel the character until I know what their name is sometimes. So I don't promise them what they get to be. Sometimes they get to be good and sometimes they get to be not great.
Is Kelly is that Kelly Garrett?
Kelly Garrett
Yeah.
is,
It's such a unique spelling.
right?
I think I know this one.
Kelly's in there, and Sherry Harris are in, and those weren't from charity. That was just people who were super supportive of me at one point when I was writing this. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll just go. Oh, okay. And I thought Kelly got a good character,
Great character.
right?
Yeah. She got her money's worth. She didn't
She
pay
didn't
for
pay
it.
anything for it, but she got a good one,
Yeah.
I think.
I love knowing that about you because that is, I think, an Easter egg for me as a reader, like picking out
Who
some of the names
recognize?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've picked out a few names through your books, like I think this is like a, and I also see your Facebook posts, so
Yeah. Sometimes I'll name it.
that's sometimes a getaway.
Well, the name Kehoe is actually a family name of a woman who's been a long time friend of mine. She has run for 30 years, I think, the Midwest Writers Workshop in Muncie, Indiana. Great friend of mine. That was her, the name she had before she got married. So she and her mother, who I know both of them, are pleased that I named the troubled family in this book after them. They don't mind. Nobody cares if it's a troubled character. They're just pleased to be invited.
Although my mother still holds a little grudge.
Does she?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Because I named that character after you? Oh, I didn't know this.
We've all read them, so we know. I don't want to spoil
No
it for the kid,
spoilers.
in case they haven't read that one.
But my characters are often, not
I-
all good and not all bad. So yeah.
I loved it.
I didn't know that your mom was mad at me.
Only a tiny bit.
What's her name?
My mom's name? Jennifer.
Jennifer. All right. No reason, Jennifer.
No, no.
That's a compliment.
What is your next project?
So my next project, contemporary. It's a couple of months, like a month ago, I was really struggling with what to write next. I was taking a little bit of a break, but I don't like to take too much of a break. It's always best for my mental health and for the good feeling in our household if I am writing, because if I'm not writing, I'm grumpy and hard to live with. So you're welcome, honey. So I needed to figure out what I wanted to write next. So I was writing some short stories, which was really fun. I haven't done that in a long time, so I was excited to do some short stories. And then so that got me in the mood to try to figure out what I'm going to write next. And I just didn't know. I have lots of ideas. It's not just like it's not just an idea. It's an idea that really speaks to you and is like nagging you to find out what else, what more, what's going to happen, who are these people and what's going on with them. So I just hadn't figured out what that idea was. I had one good idea, but it's historical, and I was like, I cannot do it just yet. That's still in the back pocket. I might do that next. So I remembered that in 2020, when I was still the National President of Sisters in Crime, I talked this 4,500 member organization and my board into being a sponsor of National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, which is where everyone sort of groups together and tries to write 50,000 words in 30 days. It's November, so everybody get ready. We're going to do it again. But I had never done it. So I talked them into spending all this money into sponsoring this event that I knew was going to be fantastic and that our members would love, but I had never done it. So I thought, I should probably join in, maybe try it. So I tried, and it wasn't great. It was not great for me. At the time, I was coming down from finishing Death at Greenway, and I just really needed the break. But I had committed to doing this, so I just wrote. But I just threw everything that I was kind of in love with at the moment into. I just was writing for joy, just trying to have some fun. And so I was writing about music, country music specifically, but music, and there were dogs. I don't usually put dogs into crime stories because then you have to worry about them.
You do.
Right? They have to make it out. That's the rule. But there's some dogs in there, and for some reason it's winter in Chicago. That was not what I loved, but I don't know. I just did. And then and cereal. No.
Oh, like the food.
Like the food.
Okay.
Because I was low carbing it, and I really missed cereal. I really missed cereal. So I threw some cereal in there, and there used to be a cereal restaurant in Chicago. Yes, we went once, and it was really good, but it did not last, as you might expect. So I'm like, there's a cereal restaurant, and there's so I just had a lot of fun with it. But it was just something that was like 15,000 words. That was my nano experience. I put it away. It's fun, and then I wrote The Death of Us. So this, like about a month ago, I'm like, I wonder if that was any good. I don't remember much about it. Like, what was that about? So I dragged it out, and at one point I had stolen about 1,000 words and turned it into a short story and sold it. So I was like, oh, that's what that was. That was what that was for, right? That was a good use of that. But when I pulled it out and started reading it, I made myself laugh a couple times, which I know I'm known for my comedy in my books. But it was like joyful because I had made it joyful, right? By putting all these things that I loved. So I decided, I think I might write that. Yep. So I very quickly within a few days, I had edited and had 50 pages to send to my agent. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I don't recommend the easier route for Sisters in Crime. No Shave November. Like, NaNoWriMo, too hard. Let's do this instead.
That's hard enough. It's 1,667 words a day, every day. It's not impossible, but you're not doing anything else that month, I think.
Yeah. Like, how many words are your books typically?
My books are typically right around like 90, 95.
Okay.
Death at Greenway was 108.
Yeah.
Which is why The Death of Us is 91. Trying to balance it out a little bit. Give you guys a break after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audience questions? I
Oh,
guess we should.
pressure. Oh, uh-oh.
It's on the internet, so she has to answer truthfully.
When you put people's names in the book, do you put any of the characterizations in with them, or just the name?
Do I like make them who they are?
Well, just take something from that person and put that into the character.
That's a good question. Not necessarily.
Or do you base that character in any way off of the real person?
Not entirely. I mean, I think I would keep like their ethnicity. Like I would not strip the ethnicity of the real person by placing in the book and then making them another white person, for instance. But not usually. I don't think. I mean, sometimes I don't know who these people are. Like the real people, maybe I know their name or they purchased a name, but I don't really know them.
Right.
So
but for your author friends,
not really. No, I mean the character has to be who they are. So it's mostly just fiction.
Right.
Yeah. Just like to make things up. I sometimes forget that. Like with Death at Greenway, people kept asking me, like, you just make it whatever you want. I'm like, but it's based on fact.
No,
I want to
you
use all the
can't.
facts I can.
Right.
When I run out of fact, I'll head into fiction.
Has your editor ever tried to strip a character that you'd promised to someone? Like the
I don't think they've ever. I mean, they've hardly ever stripped a character from me. They've never really done a lot of that. The only time that ever happened where my editor suggested that maybe we could do without this character was in Death at Greenway. but it was the first, so I wrote Death at Greenway. I had a full draft, but it wasn't great. I knew it wasn't great, but I sent it on to my agent, my editor, so that I could get some help with it. And then when I got the help, it wasn't, sorry, Emily, it wasn't very helpful. It was not, it was sort of like, oh, you're almost there. Just, and her phrase was, just pull the strings a little tighter. Except that I knew she was wrong. I have worked really, really hard to become the best editor of my own work.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's hard to get there, but it's something that I think is really important. Like I don't use outside editors. I might have a friend read it for me early on maybe, but I don't have a writer's group. It's mostly just me. And then me plus time, occasionally another person, but not a paid editor of any kind. But I just felt that it wasn't done, and I needed to fix it. So I had to figure out what I needed to fix first, and then I did, and then I rewrote it entirely from the ground up. But there was a character in Death at Greenway. She had one moment in the book, and my editor is like, oh, well, that's, she's just this person who's in this big book. She's just this one scene, and I think you can do without that scene. And I said, no, we need that for the movie. Hey, call me Hollywood. Now that you're on strike. I'm like, no, that scene's really important to me. I'm going to keep it, but I'm going to make it work. So I rewrote the entire book, and I made that scene important to a character within the story by weaving it much more tightly into the entire story. And now I hear from people all the time that that's their favorite scene. So that's the only time that anyone's ever tried to strip a character out of one of my books. And she was right to suggest it at the time. But I'm like, no, give me a minute. Or a couple months, whatever. Give me a chance to fix this book entirely, and I'll make it work. I'll also make it really long. Sorry.
So did you change that character to be more prominent?
I did. I actually made, so it was a scene, I don't think it's much spoiler, it's from World War II, that when the ships were coming out of harbor to perform what we would call D-Day, Operation Overlord, they were coming out of like Dartmouth, the mouth of the Dart River, and there was at least one woman on the hill waving the flags, goodbye, good luck, goodbye, good luck, for hours. That's from history. And I discovered that story, and I'm like, that's going in my book. Mm-hmm. It has to go in my book. But I was giving that woman, the real woman, her name, and I'm like, well, she's not in the rest of the book. So I just made it a different character. I had a character that I'm like, okay, it's going to be her that's doing it. I'm sorry, real lady. Thank you. Goodbye, good luck. But it's like a powerful moment, and I'm like, nobody knew about that moment, right? Because it was just buried in a history book, like a local history book.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm glad you kept her in there.
Thank you. I put her real name in the notes, in the author's note. That's what the author's note is for. I've only written one historical novel, but now I know the joy of the author's note is where you can be like, okay, here's where I made things up, and here's where I have.
I really like one of the questions that I want to ask, which I think that
We're almost done.
yeah. But as a reader's note, I think that the Death at Greenway, in terms of like the trajectory of like, I think it absolutely made this book as strong as it is, because the sense of place was so important to Death at Greenway that now, like, I used to, like, it was the characters that drew me to your books, and now I feel like the characters plus the place being such a character, I feel like that is
Like I had to write the big historical England set book to write this book, even though they're contemporary and Midwestern.
You grow every time.
Oh.
And you're going places.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that Lori Rader-Day, she's gonna be a star.
You called it a long time ago. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here, for getting to spend this hour with you. It's always such a pleasure. And for the virtual audience, thank you for being here this evening. If you're watching this later, thank you. And we will see you again really soon.
Bye, everybody.